Hello and welcome back to the Perch from the Wyoming Tribune Eagle. I'm Noah Zahn, the local government reporter here. This week I'm joined by Ivy Seacrest, our crime and public safety reporter, and Hannah Shields, our state government reporter. And this week, Hannah, you're bringing us a story about the special ed education programs in Laramie County School District 1 and some of the issues there that's leading to teacher burnout and maybe some avenues for support that people are seeking. But before we get into that story from you, let's get a quick local news roundup from you guys. Hannah, what's been going on with you this past week?
So last week, during their meeting, the State Building Commission discussed a draft set of rules from the State Construction Department that would allow concealed carry of firearms in the Capitol Extension, which is an underground corridor connecting the Capitol and Hirschler Building. Since August 12th, they added a change to the rules. Well, they actually added a couple of changes. One of them was to allow constitutional concealed carry, which under Wyoming statute does not require the carrier to have a permit. So that was like one of the changes. Another change was they changed the definition of public to include state employees and lawmakers, because there's a lot of concern about the exclusion of legislators from being allowed to conceal carry in the Capitol. Basically, what they did is they voted to move forward with those rules, which would open up a 45-day comment period for the public to weigh in before they make any final decisions and choose to adopt those rules at their next meeting, likely in September. When that 45-day period will open has not been determined yet. But one important thing to note is from August 12th through October 2nd, the State Construction Department conducted an online survey on its website where it received more than 130 public comments. 87% of those who had commented on the survey were against the rules change, majority of them citing safety concerns as well as intimidation fears, considering that a lot of committees will meet in rooms located in the Capitol Extension, and that's where a lot of bill drafts get discussed and a lot of controversial topics take place. People are worried that if people are carrying a gun around that area, it might, inhibit some people from freely speaking their mind. So when I asked Governor Gordon about that survey last week during a media event, he had said that, those are definitely concerns worth considering, but at the same time, it wasn't a large enough sample. So we'll see what the public says when they officially weigh in during the 45-day public comment period.
Thank you, Hannah. And now, Ivy, what's been going on with you this week?
In other news, proficiency tests for Wyoming state schools has been released for the 2023-24 school year. Wyoming Superintendent of Public Instruction, Megan Degenfelder, released the test scores and included a statement saying that, quote, "While I'm disappointed that our assessment scores have not yet caught up with pre-pandemic levels, I am proud that we have not lowered the proficiency bar like other states. In Wyoming, we'll unabashedly hold our standards high and push for excellence." Some notable schools that did achieve those goals of excellence are the Washakie County School District 2's 10 Sleep K-12 school, which particularly excelled with an 83.1 proficiency in English language arts, a 76.1% proficiency in math, and an 100% proficiency in science. The district is particularly small, serving about 108 children, and had 100% participation in their testing this year. Another school that was particularly successful is the Park County School District 1 in Powell, which also produced notable scores. The district scored 70.1% proficiency in math and a 60.6% proficiency in science.
Thank you, Ivy. And before we pass it back to Hannah, I'll update you on a story I did last week. Last Tuesday, I attended a public meeting about potential locations for a new passenger rail station in Cheyenne. Cheyenne's hoping to tack themselves on to the potential Front Range passenger rail project that's connecting Pueblo to Fort Collins via Denver. And in 2026, Coloradans will vote on that and see if it happens, and if Cheyenne will be able to get on to the end of that as well. The study looked at 6 different potential locations and really narrowed it down to 3 at this moment, and taking public input to hopefully narrow it down to 2, with 1 primary and then a secondary location. And the study will conclude in March, so they'll continue working on that. The 6 locations are at the F.E. Warren Air Force Base, or just outside of it on Wyoming state property, at the BNSF yard just a little bit east of that, at Old Happy Jack Road near the intersection of Old Happy Jack Road and Missile Drive, at the Reed Avenue corridor, part of the Reed Avenue developments there. Another one at the historic Union Pacific Depot in downtown Cheyenne, and the final one at the Terry Ranch Road exit off of Interstate 25. At the meeting, the top 3 really that they're still considering are at Old Happy Jack Road, Reed Avenue corridor, and Terry Ranch Road. The other 3 didn't really seem like they would be able to make it work too much more, so they're primarily looking at those 3 locations now. And if you'd like, you can view their plan so far and submit feedback on the Cheyenne Metropolitan Planning Organization's website. But that's all for the local news roundup. Now let's hear from our state government reporter, Hannah Shields.
Over the last couple of weeks, I spoke with some advocates here in Cheyenne who recently spilled out their concerns to me regarding the special education services in Wyoming's K-12 public schools, and more specifically, kind of how they're functioning here for Laramie County School District 1. So, Rising Star advocate Elsie Anderson told me that Wyoming's public schools are, quote, ill-equipped, unquote, to support special education students. Under federal law, students who are identified with a behavioral, physical, or developmental disability are given an individualized education program, or IEP plan. And this plan supports the child from as soon as they're diagnosed until they're 21 years of age. And public schools are required to support the services and guidelines that are outlined in these plans. However, L. Sanderson said that Wyoming's school districts are absolutely not equipped to support students with behavioral health issues. And the little thing about Elle is that she fell into the line of advocacy when her own son, Raylan, who's diagnosed with SYNGAP, which is a rare genetic disorder that affects his ability to communicate, was told 2 years ago that he couldn't bring home a device that he had used to communicate all year. So 2 years ago, right before school let out for the summer, Raylan's school refused to let him take home his augmentative assistive communication device, an iPad that he had used during the school year to communicate with his teachers.
Well, that's a problem because he's been utilizing this device between home and school for 9 months. And you tell me the day before he gets out of school that he can't have it for the summer. Mm-hmm. I didn't know why it was wrong. It just sounded terrible to me.
So Sanderson ended up reaching out to Uplift, which is a statewide nonprofit advocacy group for kids with behavioral health issues, for support. She ended up winning her fight against the school. However, since then, she's been spending the last 2 years working in partnership with Uplift to help other parents understand their rights under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, a federal law that outlines all of the parents' rights for kids who have disabled issues.
Like, we're putting all this pressure on our paras and our teachers, and they have no support. And we have special education teachers that are not certified special education teachers in this district. And the law states that you have to be a special education certified teacher to deliver instruction.
After my conversation with Elle, I wanted to dig a little bit deeper and understand what the big issue is for Wyoming statewide. I reached out to the Wyoming Department of Education, who gave me a lot of graphs that kind of helped spell out what that image looks like here in Wyoming. So according to statewide data from the state's Department of Education, there is a steady increase of K-12 students who are in need of special education services, as well as a decrease in the number of fully certified special education teachers. Specifically, since 2018, Wyoming's public schools have seen a 19% increase in autistic K-12 students, a 6% increase in students diagnosed with learning disabilities, and a 23% increase in students with multiple disabilities. However, at the same time, the percentage of fully certified special education teachers has declined by 10%. And data shows fewer teachers are going into special education and more teachers are leaving it. However, for this latter part of the data, an analyst from the department told me that it's difficult to accurately capture the turnover rates in special education in Wyoming, since there are a lot of mixed variables that impacted the results. So after learning a little bit about this, I spoke with Laramie County School District 1 Special Services Director Stacy Kern, who told me that there's a serious shortage of certified applicants to teach special education. The district has then resorted to hiring individuals on exception authorization licenses, or EAs. And an EA to teach special education just basically requires the person to hold a bachelor's degree in some field, and it requires that person to continue working towards their master's in special education. So in other words, because there are no certified special education instructors available to teach a lot of these vacant positions, people are hired on like a provisional license to teach it, even though they don't have any background training in special education.
Obviously, we want to do what's best for students, and so, people are learning the job as they're doing the job, and that is a little bit challenging. Mm-hmm. And and it's stressful for the educator who is on an exception authorization. They are learning a new job, a new craft. They're also going to school, most of them are getting a master's degree while they're teaching. So it is not the ideal situation at all. And we recognize that.
I reached out to the president of the Cheyenne Teachers Education Association, Dylan Ford, who told me in an email that morale has been pretty low in the special ed community over the past few years. He said that IEP expectations continue to rise and the level of scrutiny from the Department of Education has intensified for these classrooms. He said being a special education teacher is almost like having a second job. In addition to being a teacher, they are also required to create legal documents, conduct regular meetings with the parents, and if they're an EA teacher, then they're also working on getting their master's degree in special education while also attending trainings from the district. Typically, in a special education classroom, you would have paraprofessionals who are aides that assist the instructor and kind of help ease the brunt of that workload. But unfortunately, Ford said there's a serious shortage of paraprofessionals in the area. Unfortunately, with the lack of paraprofessionals available to help in these classrooms, this has led to burnout in special education teachers, with people resigning. And if those positions don't fill, then like the heavier workloads fall on the remaining teachers who are there to teach in these classrooms. He described it basically as a vicious cycle. Uplift Executive Director Michelle Heinen told me that she's been disappointed in the way both early childhood development centers and school districts across the state have dealt with misbehavior in children. The top complaint from parents that she's received is getting calls from the school to pick their child up for behavioral health issues.
Districts across Wyoming deal with misbehavior, whether it's the result of a disability or not.
Okay.
And so we know 100% of behavior is communication. And so instead of teaching a replacement skill and then practicing that skill, modeling that skill, practicing that skill until it comes natural, we're seeing just still a ton of suspensions, a lot of exclusions, a lot of really punitive discipline that does nothing but pile up.
The issue of these unrecorded suspensions, however, delays the child from actually getting the help that they need. And basically what happens is that when the parent is being asked to pick up the child from school, that ends up going unrecorded. And under Wyoming law, any child that receives 10 consecutive suspensions is required to get a hearing which is really the chance to look into why they're acting up, what their defenses are, and it's a chance to see if that child actually needs help from a behavioral interventionist. And so that kind of follows under child find, which under federal law is the school's responsibility to analyze and diagnose children who have behavioral health issues.
So say they're not eligible for special education, but they keep getting sent home for the same behavior. If I come in as an advocate and I say, well, the data says that he's been removed from school 15 times and nobody's done an MDR meeting or even requested that he be evaluated, the school's now failed their child find obligation.
So both Heinen and Sanderson told me that the district should raise hourly wages for paraprofessionals who are currently making an average of $17 an hour, according to ZipRecruiter. Without these aides in the classroom, a lot of the burden ends up falling on the teacher, and that can be especially daunting if that teacher is not fully prepared to teach a room full of kids with special behavioral health issues, because a lot of these teachers are basically learning how to teach them as they're teaching them. And they are also working on their master's degree. They're also attending trainings from the district, and it's just like basically working two jobs. However, at the same time, Heinen did want to note that the district has made some improvements over the last 2 years. One of these was reforming some of the classrooms into low-incidence disabilities classrooms, which are meant for students with significant cognitive disabilities or complex access needs. And another thing that the district has done is added behavior interventionists to all the elementary schools. One thing that Kern told me was that the district is working with the CTEA to find better ways to support its EAs and its special ed teachers. Just recently, the CTEA requested the district to form a working group in response to some of the burnout concerns in the special ed community. Ford told me that, the working group hasn't met yet, but once they do, they will be able to propose new support systems during negotiations this year with the district and hopefully see them pass next year.
That was our state government reporter, Hannah Shields. Thank you for bringing that to us. I know you've been working on that story for a while now, and it sounds like it came together nicely for you. But that's all for this week's episode of The Perch. Thank you to Hannah and Ivy for contributing to this week's episode. And be sure to tune back in next Wednesday for the latest news in Cheyenne and Laramie County.